What follows is a true story. It contains the realities of slavery, rebellion, and war as they happened, and it does not look away from them. Viewer discretion is advised.
It is my duty to render an exact account of my conduct. Listen then, I will tell it as it happened.
There was once a place men called the Pearl of the Antilles, a single French colony on the western third of one Caribbean island that poured out more wealth than any other colony on Earth. More, it was said, than all 13 of Britain's American colonies combined. It dressed the tables of kings. They called it Saint-Domingue, and every coin of it was built on the bodies of the enslaved. Nearly 500,000 African men, women, and children worked this land. They were worked until they died, and when they died, more ships came. The mountains were green, the fields ran to the sea, and beneath the beauty lay a machine that consumed human beings the way a furnace consumes wood. For 100 years, the machine ran. And then, on a hot night in the summer of 1791, it stopped. It began with a glow on the horizon, one plantation, then another, then the whole northern plain, catching like a field of dry grass. The masters who had grown rich on that cane ran from their burning houses into the dark, and the dark was full of the people they had owned. Drums moved through the hills. Word moved faster. By morning, the richest land on earth was on fire, and the people who had been told all their lives that they were not people had picked up the torch and answered. This is the story of how that fire became a nation, the only time in modern history that an enslaved people broke its own chains, defeated the empires of its age, and founded a free country of its own. And of the unlikely man at its center, a man who was already free when the fire began, a man who could have stayed safe and chose the fire instead. His name, before the world learned to fear it, was Toussaint. To understand the fire, understand the machine. Saint-Domingue was France's richest possession, and the arithmetic beneath it was as cold as any in human history. Sugar broke bodies faster than any other crop in the Americas, and the planters made a calculation. It was cheaper to work a person to death in a few years and buy another than to keep one alive. So the numbers ran one way. By most counts, close to 9 in 10 of the colony's people were enslaved. 2/3 had been born in Africa. They remembered other lives. They had crossed the ocean in chains, but they had not forgotten who they were before. The cruelty was not a flaw in the system. The cruelty was the system, and cruelty kept up long enough teaches its own lessons. This was not a place with two sides. It had the great planters, rich and proud, the poor whites who owned little but the color of their skin, and guarded that with a murderous jealousy. The free people of color, many of them wealthy, educated, landowning, who by law were free and by custom were despised. And beneath them all, holding the whole weight of the colony, the enslaved. 4 grievances, 1 island, and the memory of resistance ran deep, of the maroons in the mountains, of a man named Ma Kandal, burned a generation before for a poison campaign that had made the masters fear their own cups. They killed him to prove the terror was over. They only taught their slaves that even death could be defied. It needed one spark. In 1789, France rose against its king and wrote down words that would detonate in the cane fields, that all men are born free and equal in rights. All men. The free people of color asked a reasonable question. Where are our rights? One of them, a wealthy man named Vincent Auger, stopped asking and demanded. He was hunted down and broken on the wheel, his body shattered while he still lived, and left on display as a warning. The warning was received, but not as intended. Every soul on that island had just learned the same lesson. There would be no justice handed down. Whatever freedom anyone wanted here, they would have to take it. By the late summer of 1791, the enslaved were planning what had never succeeded anywhere in the Americas. Not an escape, but a revolution. What happened in a wooded place called Bois Caïman comes down to us through memory as much as record, and honesty demands we say so. The famous words spoken there were written down decades later by men who were not present. But this much the evidence supports. A gathering took place. A ceremony rooted in the faith the enslaved carried from Africa bound the leaders in oath. A man named Bookman stood among them, and within days, the North was burning. The rising was coordinated in a way the planters believed the enslaved incapable of. Plantation after plantation went up at once, as many as 1,000 across the North. The masters fled to the coast and watched the horizon glow. The machine had stopped, and it would never start again. And now, the man. The legend says a slave rose from the smoke to lead his people. The truth is better. When the fire began, Toussaint was nearly 50, and he had been free for some 15 years. Born into slavery on the Breda plantation, freed in his 30s, he had taught himself to read where teaching a slave was a crime. He leased land, he grew coffee, and, the hard truth the comfortable version leaves out, for a time he himself owned the labor of the enslaved. So when the North went up in flames, Toussaint had everything to lose and no reason to join. He did not rush to the fire. He moved his own family to safety, and he protected his old white overseer and helped his family off the island unharmed. And then, weeks in, with his eyes open and everything to lose, he chose it.
I was free. I could have kept my quiet life, but I looked at my people in their chains, and I chose them, and I have never unchosen them.